This is Dr. Wysong. This series of videos on the big questions of life will show where each one of us is led if we dare to leave behind preconceived ideas and see where reason and evidence lead.
The law of information. It used to be thought that babies grew from a very small version of the same thing, termed a homunculus. From a Bible perspective, this neatly explained how it was that in Adam all had sinned. The whole of humanity resided within his loins, homunculi within homunculi within homunculi, and so on. Therefore, when he sinned, so did all of his contained homunculi, giving us all an original sin requiring a Savior. Our modern understanding of genetics retired the cute little baby in a sperm homunculus idea. However, although DNA in a fertilized ovum may not be a preformed homunculus, human, its program is a blueprint for a human. To any thinking person, it's a consternating wonder that something as unimaginably complex and functional as a human could form from an egg the size of a period at the end of a sentence. Not only that, there is the issue of the source of the complex information embedded in our DNA. DNA is comprised of smaller molecules that in turn come from atoms, which are in turn comprised of quanta. But none of these components contain the information, the blueprint to form a human. There's an obvious difference between the information in sperm and eggs and that which is within their component atoms. Search as they may, atomic physicists never find so much as even a hint of anything akin to the information characterizing life residing in these atoms. Any given atom only contains information about how to be that atom. On their own, atoms don't know how to combine to form a blueprint for a person. Nowhere can there be rescued an answer from the hundreds of years of research and millions of pages of scientific literature. No plausible, tiny, quantum, mechanical, atomic, molecular, or biochemical evolutionary baby steps have ever been devised or even attempted. If it could be done, it would have by now, and laboratories around the world would be churning out every imaginable sort of living thing. But not even the simplest of living things has ever been created in spite of the brain power expended. Yet evolutionists contend it happened in the past with no brain power whatsoever. Add every materialistic explanation for the origin of life up, draw a line, and the same impossible conclusion emerges. Massive amounts of information must magically come from no information. Complex functional things with meaningful information, like life, must come from a sufficient cause. The injection of intelligent information is always necessary to take fundamental things beyond their intrinsic nature. On their own, water molecules don't become ice sculptures. Letters don't become books. Dust doesn't create skyscrapers, and atoms don't create DNA. Information is what implants information in books, blueprints, and computer programs. We normally think of information as it relates to language, but even natural objects like trees and people contain information. Even rocks and atoms do. There is a menu of information within things defining what they are and what they can do. Moreover, it's an immutable law that things naturally lose information. They don't gain it. Start at one end of a group of people. Whisper to a person, "Earth science describes nature's machinations." Then ask that it be whispered one to another to the end of the group. When it gets to the end, it will be something like, "Washing machines clean Earth." At the end of any series of random events acting upon information, the loss of information always exceeds any random gains. On July 22, 1962, the Mariner 1 space probe was exploded shortly after liftoff. The omission of a single hyphen in the guidance software information led to a series of false course correction signals, and the rocket was then deliberately detonated to prevent it from crashing down in a populated area. The rocket was worth between $80 and $150 million, a loss due to a single typo error. Now, the point of this is that even a small inadvertent error can fatally destroy functional information. Imagine what random changes can do. Neither the information or its inevitable degradation over time jibes with evolution. It's not, as evolution demands, within the nature of things to become more complex by adding information. And science is about observation, facts, and obedience to natural laws. But there are no observations or facts demonstrating spontaneous information increase in the absence of outside intelligent agency. Nor would such a thing be consistent with natural law. Matter can naturally manifest in different forms that, at first glance, appear to be something other and more complex than what they were to begin with. For example, a snowflake is an intricate pattern that does not look at all like a water molecule. But the snowflake is nothing more than a manifestation of the pre-existing information in the molecule. Even though there are trillions of different snowflake configurations, they are all expressions of pre-existent capacity held within water molecules. But aside from the ability to form water, clouds, and snowflakes, as well as evaporate, sublimate, combine with or dissociate other chemicals, and expand upon freezing, that's about all the information the water molecules contain. The encyclopedia within water molecules never so much as adds even a meaningful letter or word. It is what it is, and that's it. Organisms are best thought of as the effect of information. The DNA molecule is made of 4 nucleotides, represented by the letters A, C, G, and T, adenine, cytosine, guanine, and thymine. This is a quaternary code as opposed to the binary code of computers. These molecular letters are in turn organized into genetic codons, genes, operons, regulons, and chromosomes, which are like words, sentences, paragraphs, chapters, and books. The prodigious DNA information in even one human cell is staggering. The 100 trillion cells in the entire body would equal 1 followed by 15 zeros, copies of a 300 or 400 page book. That's enough books stacked side by side, as in a library, to reach to the sun well over 50 times. The information carrying capacity of DNA outstrips inorganic data storage devices such as flash memory, hard disks, or even storage based on quantum computing methods. It's estimated that about a teaspoon of DNA in 2011 could have held all the information up to that time, from the ancient Greeks through every selfie, text, movie, and album. With present silicon chip technology, by 2040 the amount of world data accumulated for instant access would require a facility costing billions and decades to build. This is not to mention consuming hundreds of megawatts of power and exhausting the world's supply of computer-grade silicon. On the other hand, only about 2 pounds of DNA would be required and would consume about 0.04 watts per gigabyte. In addition to recognizing the extraordinary information, the carrying capacity of DNA, the critical point to understand is that the information in DNA is beyond the characteristics and information that's found in the atoms composing its structure. Atoms simply don't have the know-how on their own to form DNA or any other information carrying biochemical that could result in functional complexity. Information is an entity in and of itself and apart from the letters and vocabulary it uses. It's neither energy dependent nor matter dependent. It's other. Something had to encode, in other words, tell quanta, neutrons, protons, cells, organs, physiological system, bodies, planets, stars, and galaxies to be what they are and behave as they do. Nothing discovered within nature can account for this, other than pre-existing information. Information requires an information giver, an intelligence, a mind. We know this to be true because when things that contain functional information such as blueprints, music, language, instructions, and computer HTML are constructed, they require mind. We also know that once in place, such information remains as it is or degrades with time. There's no exception to the rule, and that's as good as science can get. It's simple, obvious, common sense, and requires no data to be excluded. Everything is what it is because of information. Everything stays what it is because of information. Randomness and time, the gods of materialism and evolution, are destroyers of information, not its creators. Information always requires an information giver, an intelligent mind. That's an inviolable law that evolution violates. Notice that the conclusions derived from the law of information don't require any religious predisposition, nor do they lead to one. We're simply letting known truths guide us. An evolutionist who disagrees is free to prove by evidence or experiment that functional information, on the scale found even in the simplest living organism, can arise spontaneously. So far, in spite of millions of pages of scientific literature and hundreds of years, silence. Instead, there's just hubris and dogged belief. Again, that's religion, not science. This material has taken 3/4 of a century of life experience and decades of research, thought, and writing. Hearing that it has helped is really the only reward I seek. Feel free to contact me with your thoughts or questions at asifThinkingMatters.com.